to the Washington State Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm so excited to be joined by Victor today. Victor runs the website and the business iwillbuyhouse.com. And we're going to dig into his business here in real estate, up and down the I-5 corridor kind of, and even on over in the east side of the west side of the state in the Bellevue area, that kind of area as well. So Victor, welcome to the podcast. As we get started, talk a little bit about what inspired you to start I Will Buy House, and how did you start to build this business?
Well, I had a career that completely made it very parallel, very easy to get into real estate. It made a lot of sense. You know, you get your degree in nursing, you go to work at the hospital for 7 years, and that primes you for real estate. I mean, like, that's the best thing you could ever do.
And so, yeah,
no,
I'm sure it is.
No. So really, I mean, I got into real estate and, wholesaling because I looked at a lot of other options I've always had like the entrepreneurial bug. I mean, as a kid, I had a joke that I was like going to create a company called Good Day Corporations. And, I didn't get into business. I honestly probably should have, because just the personality that I am right now, I'm like, oh my gosh, what were you doing in nursing? But everything has a purpose, and that's where it kind of led me. So I did all those things. I went to WSU, go Cougs.
Oh yeah,
then
me too.
I got nice. There you go. I knew I like you for a reason. That's why. So I went to WSU, got my degree in Spokane for the nursing program. And worked as a pediatric nurse for 7 years in Seattle Children's Hospital. Loved what I was doing. It was very rewarding, very fulfilling, but I wanted more. To me, working the hours that I did, the night shift was grueling. I'd work sometimes 10 days in a row.
Wow.
And now I work more.
And then you decided to own your own business, and now you just work all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I don't get a day off. So it's kind of like that funny meme. Is like, I quit my 9-to-5 job and now I work 24/7.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yep.
It's owning your own business for sure.
Yep. And then really it was just, I looked into becoming a doctor. That didn't work out. I wanted to be what's called a anesthetist. Anesthetist. I don't know. I don't even know how to pronounce it anymore. And I was like, it's not for me. And then I saw this thing called real estate. Come on, real estate. That's typical Russian thing. I'm not going to do that. It's kind of like getting cars, fixing them up and selling out. That's so stereotypical. I'm not doing remodels on houses because I just had a bad, connotation to it, but there's tons of money into that. Tons of money. I didn't know that. Yeah. And then I was like, okay, well, this is interesting. Keeps popping up on my search of like how to make money. Because I literally Googled, how do I make money? And there was like a post of like various things to sell. They like sell books, garage. I'm like, I'm not gonna do garage sales, and I'm not doing that. And then it just kept coming up, real estate. I was like, okay, I gotta look into this. I gotta let this preconceived notion down and see what real estate's all about. Then I read some books. I went to a website, and after website, I read some stuff on blogs. I went to a meetup, and that was like, okay, this is interesting. And I heard a thing about wholesaling. I was like, what is this? I've never heard of this. This is weird. And they talked about like, you could get into real estate with no money. I'm like, well, it's not that I don't have any money. I have very little of it. So how can I get more money to buy my flip? Then I went to a couple of like weekend classes, and this is me without having kids yet. Went to a couple of classes, and they were talking about wholesaling. I'm like, I could do this. So I'm going to do three wholesale deals. I'm going to get enough money, and then I'll do my first flip. 10 years later, I am still wholesaling, barely flipping, and very deliberately. Yeah. And I did do a couple of deals. So like the first deal, I made like 13,000. I was like, yes, that was my first deal, and made 13,000. That was like proof to my wife, like, hey, there's money into this. This took me, at that time, it took me like 6 months to do that, or 9 months to make that kind of money. But it was like an aha moment of, oh my gosh, this is one deal. You just made 4 months of a salary as a nurse at that time in one deal. How can you repeat this? That was like, okay, my wife was like, okay, you made that money, pay us back. Then you can reinvest whatever you want back into what you're doing. And so she let me do my thing. And I noticed that at some point I was like, okay, my interests are not aligned. I'm working seven or sometimes 10 days in a row, night shift. I'm coming home at 7 a.m. So getting off of shift 7 a.m., coming home around 8, talking to sellers, then going to bed, waking up at 3, 4 o'clock, going to the gym, at work at 7 p.m. and repeating that all over again. So I was like, something's got to change. And the funny thing is I saw a proof of concept, not that I could completely replace my income with wholesaling, but I saw a proof of concept and I was like, okay, you got a proof of concept. It's producing. And as soon as I pretty much quit my job, I got 2 massive deals, like $64,000 and $42,000.
Wow.
So that to me was awesome, but it was a struggle after struggle. Don't think that there's a happy ending to it, because there ain't. Because it was like figuring this out. Really, wholesaling is about marketing and sales. It's not about investing. People, stop lying to yourself that you call yourself an investor. You are not. You are not an investor. You are a day trader. You're trading your time for money, and that's what wholesaling is. And I get that. I understand that. So I am not into real estate because I could take my same skill sets. I could go sell, let's just call it surgical supplies. I could go sell the next app that comes out, or I could sell a widget, go buy something on Amazon and sell that widget, because it's all marketing and sales. That's what wholesaling is. It just so happens to be in the space of real estate. And so, 10 years later, I'm still figuring this out. I don't have it completely figured out. I mean, I have, over 500 deals that I've done, but I'm still figuring out. I'm still like, okay, what's the next thing that I need to be focusing on? How can I improve what I'm doing right now? So yeah, that's how I kind of transitioned into real estate.
Yeah, very cool. I love it. Everybody has such a great story of how they got into real estate from whatever your background was when you got started. So in a year now, so say here in 2024, how many deals do you have a goal of how many deals you want to do? How many houses you want to get under contract?
Yeah, I mean, I'm spending about right now it's roughly around like 50,000 a month in marketing. So if you do the math, if you're saying, okay, if you're going to spend 50,000 in marketing, what should you produce from that marketing spend? And I like to use a simple rule. It's anything special. I don't like the 70% rule.
Yeah.
I think it's not very good, at least especially accurate in our market. But it's like a rule of thumb. So if you're spending 50,000, you should be making at least 4x that, and just in gross revenue, not profits, but gross revenue. So you do the math, right? You should be making at least 200,000 a month, and that for me is that's like a C minus.
Okay,
that's not like great. Where I truly want to be is $1 million a month. So $1 million a month means I'm spending over $200,000 in marketing spend, probably closer to 250 is where I want to be spending in marketing spend. So I'm gearing myself for that. And, before you can scale, you need to first, standardize and optimize before you can scale. Because if you're going to scale and you don't have standard and optimized done, you're going to scale the wrong thing. Whatever your problems are now, they're just going to be magnified when you try to scale. Yeah. A lot of people are like, oh, I started a business, now I want to scale. It's like, hold on a second. Standardize first. Figure this out. Make it repeatable.
I love that. And so when you're marketing, what are all your marketing channels to get homes under contract?
Right now, it's mainly Google.
Okay.
PPC is the main one that I'm working on. That's the main one. We do cold calling, texting, which is probably going to go away, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Texting is on its way out. We've already been flagged, and it's not our fault. We were compliant, but the company who was using our account, they weren't compliant. And so we got banned. It's like, we were following the rules. Why are we in trouble?
Yeah.
It's frustrating. So we're just now on the tail end of that. We got reinstated last week. We're going through the process of building up our credibility. So we're texting. We're also doing pay-per lead channels. And one of my favorite ones, SEO. God, I love SEO.
Really?
I wish I could be better at SEO than I am now. But SEO is a great one to
and
be
just
had.
on Google, basically, then are you paying for sponsorship spots on top of SEO?
You mean when you say sponsorship, you mean like ads?
Yeah, you're paying for ad on Google, Google searches. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then with those ads, for people that don't know, can you kind of explain how those work, of how you can customize them to be, what are your customizations? Location, I'm going to guess, is probably one. Like, you want your ad to be shown in these specific zip codes or these specific areas.
Yeah, you
What other
target an area.
customizations do you have?
Yeah, you target an area. You go through the keywords, of course,
Mhm.
you're targeting for, because certain keywords have different weight to them and different prices to them. There's
Right.
also negative keywords you don't want to be
Mhm.
targeting because they don't produce. So it's a campaign within Google Ads that you run
Yeah.
that you
And
tailor
is that
to.
where most of your leads come from? Are they coming through that? Is that your number one lead channel?
Depends what you mean by most.
Okay.
If you're saying number of leads, then no. But if you say
Okay.
number of deals, the answer is yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. Interesting. Oh, that's great. Hey, folks, I want to introduce you to Inspectify, our partner that is transforming the way properties are inspected. Whether it's new construction, acquisition, sales, unit turns, or renovations, Inspectify can capture your inspection data swiftly and efficiently. Customizable inspection scopes, cutting-edge tech, and an API integration promise high-fidelity property data with every report. They also have unique insight into permits and appliances, protecting your investment from potential pitfalls. Ready at a moment's notice, Inspectify ensures excellence with proprietary tech, top-notch customer service, and coast-to-coast coverage. Want to learn more about what Inspectify can do for you? Listen to episode 30 of the podcast, where I interview CEO Josh Jensen. Don't wait. Visit inspectify.com now and enter the future of property inspection with Inspectify. Well, once you get a house under contract, can you talk a little bit about your next steps? How do you determine if you're going to keep that home and flip it yourself? Or you said most of the times you're turning around and wholesaling. So I take it you have a list of investors that you then, get a home under contract. You're emailing your list of investors. Can you kind of walk us through what that? We have a lot of investors that listen to the podcast, so just kind of walk through what that looks like for an investor, if
For
they're on your
sure.
list or can be on your
Yeah.
list.
Now, the day and age of traditional wholesaling is changing. And I think that we're going to probably get into some of those things
Yeah.
later on. But just to kind of a preface is this is a changing landscape. This is what, as of April 18th, 2024, this is how it is. Not to say that next year, or honestly next month, it's going to be the same.
Yeah.
So if whatever got you from 0 to 1 is not what is going to get you from 1 to 2. And that is a huge fallacy. People think that that's successful. Well, what worked for me in the past is going to work for me in the future. Well, I mean, there's a propensity for success if you continue that. However, it doesn't mean that you can't be disrupted. Look at Blockbuster, for example.
Yeah.
So when I get a deal under contract, what I used to do is I used to have a list. I would work that list and I would network with other people, and then we would exchange lists and whatnot and build up a pretty decent buyers list. And because of the volume of leads I was doing consistently, I wasn't in a fly-by-night operation. People are like, oh man, this guy is still around. Holy crap.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of built like a reputation in our community about like the guy who does sends out wholesale deals. So that was great. And I've sent it to my buyers list. Now I am going to give a shout out to InvestorLift. So InvestorLift is a great tool. Robert Winsley is the owner, and him and I are good friends. And not just because we're good friends. I liked the product before we really became friends. So when he first launched InvestorLift, I was like, this is interesting. What is InvestorLift? And I really like the platform because it's a disposition tool that filled a need in our community. There wasn't a unified way to find buyers. So now instead of marketing just to our buyers list, we market to a consortium of buyers list. Wow. And I have a status in the InvestorLift community called Cartel. Now Cartel is I think it's called enterprise level. And only like the top wholesalers in the nation get into that status. And it's not cheap, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not cheap. And now, so what I do is I have access across the country. I think it's like 4.2 million buyers. Wow. So in our market, I think it's like 35 or 40,000 buyers. But that's just
in our market here in the greater Seattle area.
Yeah, but that's
Wow.
not a lot. I mean, we're
Yeah.
compared to the rest of the country, we're not very big. We're
Wow.
probably, I don't know, in the 20s,
Wow.
maybe the teens as far as like market goes. So there's bigger markets out there than just Washington State, but we're
Wow.
definitely one of the bigger markets on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it would definitely be California, like San Diego,
Sure.
LA, Portland would be another one, and yeah, the Seattle metro area would be that one. So it's
Hmm.
not. It sounds like a lot, but I promise you, it's not that much.
Huh. Seems like a
Yeah,
lot to me. I don't
yeah.
know.
And then
Yeah.
one of the questions people ask, like, well, hey, is Investor Lift worth it? I I have no dog in the fight,
Yeah.
so meaning that it's not like I get a kickback from this. The
Mm-hmm.
thing is, if you're not on Investor Lift, you're losing money.
Mm.
Straight up.
Wow.
Man, I cringe. I cringe when someone says, "Hey, I have 5 buyers on my list and I wholesale all my deals to them."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay, you're definitely leaving money on the table.
Yeah.
You're definitely
Wow.
leaving money on the table."
Wow. That's great.
Good job for those 5 buyers that you got.
Yeah.
They've done a great job, but you're losing money you're leaving money on
Wow.
the table. Because our average wholesale fee it has gone down. It definitely has gone down. And it used to be 32, 28. Now it's 30 again.
Mhm.
So, it's, I mean, it's not nothing to brag about because I got a
Yeah.
really good friend in San Diego who's averaging, I think you said 55
Wow.
wholesale. So and honestly, San Diego is not better than our market. It's not.
Yeah.
We're actually
Yeah.
a better market, but who's operating will determine that. But if the more buyers you have, the more people who are looking at your deals. So
Right.
market demand, right? More people looking at the deal, more people will want the deal, more
Yeah.
options to wholesale the deal too.
Wow. I love that. Well, let's talk a little bit about the future, specifically here in the Seattle metro area, around wholesaling and the work that you do in your company. How do you see the current landscape now, and kind of what do you see kind of coming, or what do you think the future holds for wholesaling?
Well, wholesaling is definitely going to change. It's definitely going to change. And I also see that real estate agents, that's going to change too.
Yeah.
So hopefully no other realtors get offended by this, but that industry is ripe for disruption.
Yeah.
And so is wholesaling.
Yeah.
And here's why I say that. Realtors. It's been around that model for a really long time without very much innovation.
Right.
And with lack of innovation comes the prime for someone to disrupt. Like I said earlier, the Blockbuster and Netflix, everybody knows that story. Literally
Yeah.
everybody knows that
Yeah.
story. Blockbuster is like, hey, this is our corner of the market. There's no way,
Yeah.
anybody's going to come in. They had
Yeah.
the chance to buy Netflix. I think
They
for
had the
like,
chance to buy them.
yeah, for like $30 million. That's like pennies on the dollar.
I know. That's so
Yeah.
crazy, huh?
And so what they came with is like this new technology
Mhm.
to be able to rent DVDs online. Yeah. And they changed it to a streaming platform. And that right there was a massive game changer. What problem did it solve? You have to ask yourself, what problem did Netflix solve that Blockbuster didn't?
For me, it's not having to return your VHS tape.
Well, first of all, that was a scam because it was like you could have bought that movie by the time all the late fees you paid. So
Yeah, that's so true.
the pain point it solved was convenience.
Yeah.
Okay, you could sit at home, click a button, and watch a movie.
Yeah.
What steps did it remove? Going to the store, renting the movie, driving back, returning it.
Yeah.
There are so many steps in that.
Yeah.
And Netflix said, don't even drive anywhere. You could, at the comfort of your home, click a button. Don't have to return anything. Don't have to go anywhere. It's right there.
Yeah.
They removed so much steps in that. And look at the realtors right now. There's so many steps in the process.
Yeah.
So many steps in the process. And I don't know what that change is going to be for them. I feel like there's going to be a technology disruptor, maybe AI, who knows? Same thing with wholesaling. There is so many steps in that process. But the thing is that it's hard to disrupt is human interaction.
Yeah.
because realtors have a relationship with people. That's really hard to disrupt. It really, really is. So same thing with wholesaling too, is there's companies out there who had millions and millions of VC money to try to disrupt wholesaling, and they failed. The reason they failed because they treated people like a commodity, like a number. And that's where the part they failed. So I feel like there's going to be a change happening in wholesaling that will disrupt the market. And you could actually kind of see some of the things happening right now. Oklahoma has pretty much outlawed wholesaling. Illinois, you can only wholesale one deal. South Carolina is trying to pass a law into place that says if you have an interest in a contract, you cannot sell that contract to anybody else. So there's unless you have your realtor's license or something like that. There's already a couple of states out there who have a target on wholesaling.
Wow.
So it's going to get disrupted. I know that. So for me, it's like, okay, well, how can I do that? And so some things that has changed vastly is novations. Do you know what novation is?
No.
Cool. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Okay. A novation is another way to almost wholesale. It's not the same thing as wholesaling.
Okay.
It's being able to offer a seller a lot more money than a wholesale and still get them to the end result, as long as they're okay with the timing aspect of it and the access piece of it. So if they're okay with that, we could actually offer them more money. So that has been a massive disruptor for wholesaling, massive disruptor. In 2021, January, we're like, holy freaking crap. We only are going to make like 200,000 or 150,000 that month, which is not a lot.
Yeah.
Which is not a lot of money. People are like, "Oh, Victor, you're doing so great." It's like, you don't know all the numbers. You know, there's a lot of burn rate we have in our company, right? And so to sustain this organization, like $50,000, like I'm like, people are like, "Oh, wow, you closed 50,000." I'm like, yeah, that just paid for my marketing.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I broke even
this month.
Yeah. So we were like making 50,000 that month, and I was like freaking out. I'm like, this is crazy. And then my buddy is like, I met with him at a mastermind, and he was talking about this thing called innovations. And he was like, yeah, man, I could do a deal, listing on the MLS. And I'm like, what? And he tried to explain it to me. I'm like, bro, once you figure that out, come but talk to me. Otherwise, I'm not going to try to introduce this thing because it's working for me. Right now, wholesaling is working for me. Why would I change it?
Yeah.
And well, it wasn't. Yeah. And so then we started it in February. I went to my buddy, learned the process. Then we started doing it in February. March time, we're like seeing wholesale innovation 50-50. And then February, bam, we make like 750,000 that month in April. So it's a massive disruptor. And right now, most of my deals are novations. I don't do as much of wholesaling anymore. We're primarily a novation company now. And so that's a disruptor in the wholesaling space. So I feel like could be another disruptor. I call it wholesaling 3.0. Yeah. And that's a whole new ballpark that we can get into.
Yeah. Do you feel like are you finding more homeowners looking to sell their homes right now? Do you feel like the way the economy is going, interest rates aren't coming down, people are locked into these homes? Are you seeing more leads come in, or doing more deals, or anything around that in the future that you're kind of keeping your eye on?
The cool thing about real estate is it's a necessity. You have to have a house. You have to sleep somewhere. Yeah. So it's a necessity. And what determines our lead flow is how much money we're willing to spend. Yeah. That's what really determines our lead flow, at least in this market. I can't say, back in 2006, 2008, that could be true. Sure. So the interest rates that people are very, afraid of and whatnot, and they do definitely impact, but we have to learn what the new normal is. Yeah. Right. This is the new normal. 7% interest rate is the new normal. We need to adjust how we spend how we look at things and how we calculate our numbers to adjust to this new normal. But there's just a massive, and I want to say it again, massive undersupply of inventory in the market, massive disruptor of inventory. So the demand is up here, the supply is here. There's a huge gap, and that's why we're still seeing, deals being had, even though the interest rates are high.
Yeah. And I think we're seeing that across the state of Washington. All of our rental properties, we have a bunch of rental properties over in Spokane, and it's the same thing in Spokane too. It's just the supply is not there, and the demand is still through the roof. Even as there is more supply hitting the market, but it's not even close to being able to meet the demand yet. We're not seeing those numbers really drop. So it's very interesting. Just here in our state, I think we're going to be in that market for a while yet. And we still have more people moving into the state of Washington than we have moving out. We're in so it's going to be really interesting, I think, especially in the greater Seattle area here. I mean, there's so many homes and so many people moving constantly. I just feel like there's always people shifting either from Seattle to Bellevue or Bellevue to Seattle or north to south. There's just so much movement around here that I think there's probably going to be opportunities like this for quite a while in the current market that we have. So,
yeah, there is. There always will be opportunity. Yeah.
Well, Victor, thank you for spending some time with us today and really talking about this. If any investors are listening to this and they want to reach out and learn more about you, learn more about your company, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, my IG, which is Victor GLG, which stands for God, Love, and Growth, and Facebook, right? Victor.Rybachuk at whatever handle
Facebook.
That is. Yeah, Facebook. I don't know.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure all of those, including the iwillbuyhouse.com website, is in the show notes here as well as Investor Lift. We'll make sure that makes it over there. If anybody wants to take a look at that and you haven't heard of that platform yet, we'll make sure that's in the show notes as well. Victor, thank you for spending some time with us today talking about your business and wholesaling here in Western Washington.
Cool. Absolutely.